Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be going over this new Magnum KATANA CRAW that they released at ICAST this year. It's the 4.2-inch version. We're going to compare that to the original 3-inch version, as well as go over some rigging tips because this thing is a monster. Let's get to it. So for today, we're going to start with a solid color first, and we're going to go with this LureWorks Mint Brown. It's kind of a pretty cool color where it kind of changes from like a minty green color to a brown. Alright, so we're going to start with 20 drops of this and see where it gets us. So you can see in the cup, it still looks really nice and dark and brown. And then when I pull it up on the stir, you can see that green coming through. So I'm hoping the thinner parts, like the legs and antennas of this craw, will still have that green color, and then the body will be nice and brown. I think 20 drops is actually all we need for this one. And then for flake, we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to go with just black flake, but we're going to add all three sizes: the large 0.062, the medium 0.04, and the small 0.015. We're going to go with 1/8 of a teaspoon of each size flake just to get started. So there's our large, got our medium, and then our small. We'll see what that's looking like. So I think I want to add a little bit more. I'm going to go with another 1/8 of the medium and another 1/8 of the large. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So we're gonna get this plastic up to temperature, and I'm gonna inject this. Since the body of this bait is really thick, I'm gonna inject it really cold. I've injected this mold one time. I've literally only made 3 baits out of it. I didn't have any problems with denting, but I do just want to inject cold just to eliminate the possibility of that. And here we go with run number 1. We are ready to open this bad boy up. So like I said, this is the 4.2-inch version. And there we go. So you can see in the antennas, you get that green coming through. And then around the edges of the bait in direct sunlight, you'll have that like minty green coming through on the brown. But this thing, it should almost be labeled a lobster. Like, this thing is huge. The thickness of this bait is outrageous, to be honest. In a good way, I guess. If you're wanting to get the biggest fish you can catch, this is what you need to be throwing. So let me grab. So this is a 4-inch Ecto Craw from Angling AI Molds. So you would think a 4-inch bait and a 4.2-inch bait would be pretty comparable. And lengthwise they are, but look at the thickness of the bodies of these baits. That's literally like double or even triple the thickness of this bait. And where that comes into play is how you're going to rig this thing. At the very end, we're going to go over some of the ways that I think are going to be the best ways to rig this. But on this little 4-inch Ecto Craw, you could throw like a 3/0, maybe even a 4/0 EWG hook on this thing and fish it on a Texas rig or however you want. You will not be able to do it with this one. Like that, the thickness of that body is just insane. But yeah, we're gonna, and like I said, we're gonna cover all the rigging at the very end. I'm still really excited about using this mold. We got that plastic in the microwave, heating back up. We're gonna make one more run of these, and then we're gonna try and see if this mold laminates very well. Yeah, round number 2 on the way. And here we have round number 2. So when I injected the second round, I did inject it a little bit hotter. I injected this one around 340 degrees. And you can see right here, I did get a little tiny dent in the claw of that one. It's not going to affect the action of the bait whatsoever. I just wanted to do it just to test it. So yeah, if you are going to be making this, I would recommend injecting somewhere between 300 and 320 at the hottest, just because this is a very, very thick bodied bait. And as that plastic cools, it shrinks, and you just want to make sure you have enough plastic to prevent dents. But yeah, really cool little run. For the laminating ones, I haven't laminated this mold yet, so I just have some leftover green pumpkins and then some kind of reddish browns. I'm going to heat these up real quick, and then we're going to see how well this mold can laminate. Alright, we got these colors remelted and ready to go. The one thing I do want to touch on though, if you're going to be laminating, the way the entry, like the opening of the mold is, the blending block doesn't sit flat. So it does kind of wiggle around. So just be mindful of that when you're going to laminate, and make sure that you're not knocking anything off or over. But we're going to go ahead and get these going. Make sure we get our laminate block in place. This is what the little rod on the laminate block is for, so you can hold the block and the injector together. That way you can eliminate the block falling out. It is time to check this guy out. Which side they want to come out on, or they're just going to fall out. All right, so here we go. We got our green pumpkin on the top, and then that it's kind of like a reddish pinkish brown color, but as you can see there, the mold seems to laminate just fine. I have the smaller version of it, so I really had no concern of it not working. But yeah, laminates really well. And this color is just, like I said, some remelt I had laying around. I like to always test new molds with the remelt. Just so I can kind of learn the mold, figure out what it does and doesn't like before I start mixing up new colors. But that worked out just fine. We're going to get that plastic heated back up. We're going to make one more run of these, and then we'll move on to the rigging tips. And here we have the second run. They turned out just as good as the first. So I'm going to get all these together, and then we're going to go over some of the ways to rig this thing. Alright, so now we're going to go over some of the rigging tips. So you heard me mention at the beginning, this is just a standard 4/0 EWG hook. And as you can see, rigged up on a normal 4-inch CRAW, when a fish bites and you go to set the hook, you have plenty of hook gap between the bait and the hook to actually get good hook penetration. However, if we go to rig one of these up the same way, let's rig it up for you real quick. So you can see it looks nice, and that hook point sits right down in that hook slot really well. But when you get a bite and go to set the hook, you have very, very little gap. And I'm pushing that hook up against the bottom of the bait. You don't have much of a gap. Let me do a side by side so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see the difference in how much hook gap there is between these two baits. Now, the reason that's, and I'm not going to say that it wouldn't work. It very well might work. However, with how big this bait is, the chances of you catching a pretty big fish are pretty high. So for me, when I go to when I'm fishing this bait and I get a bite, if I'm running the risk of losing a fish because of that hook gap, I don't feel comfortable, and I'm not going to be confident in that. Another way that I've heard people talking about rigging this is Do It Mold's Magnum Midwest Finesse. It's basically a giant Ned rig. This is also a 4/0 hook. I'll rig one of these up for you as well. I believe this is the 7/16 ounce head, but that part doesn't really matter too much. So we're going to get this rigged up. And again, the hook sits right in that hook slot very well. But you can see on the bottom, I mean, this would be super weedless. Like, it'd go through probably anything. But again, when you go to set the hook, there's just not much of a gap between the hook and the bait. And And then the way I fish let me grab one. So I fish the smaller size Katana Craw on these little finesse jigs, and this is my go-to finesse jig trailer. Like, these little baits are phenomenal. Well, when you bump up and you put this on a full-size jig, you do have a little bit better of a hook gap, and that would probably be fine. This is, I believe this one was this one's a 3/0 owner deep throat hook. And you could probably get away with this. However, the way I'm going to be fishing this, I made some jigs specifically for these. So this is a Mustad 5/0 hook, and it is a gaff of a hook. But you can see it's not like the hook is just way too big for this profile. This is a massive, let me grab that small one again. You can see the size difference in these two jigs and like the overall profile. Like, this thing is huge. So I want that giant hook in there so that I have plenty of room for the hook to actually penetrate into the fish's mouth. This is how I'm going to fish it probably 99% of the time. I feel like this is probably going to be the best way to fish it. These craws are phenomenal on the back of jigs. Fish do have a tendency to rip the claws off, but if you throw in and you get a bite and you bring it in and one of the claws are gone, throw right back in. They're going to rip your claws off, and then they're just going to inhale this thing. So this is how I'm going to fish it the majority of the time. But one other thing that I did kind of, I'm not going to say discover, but thought of, if you go get some owner beast hooks in the 4/0 size, so everyone know, I'm sure most of you know, this is made for swim baits. However, let me unrig this standard one. So this is a regular 4/0 EWG. This is a 4/0 beast hook. You can see how much deeper the throat of that hook is. So if you wanted to throw a Texas rig, you get one of these, and these have the twist lock keepers on the front, which I am a very, very big fan of. I like the twist lock hooks, but you're just going to screw your bait onto that twist lock, rig it just like you would your normal Texas rig. And the 4/0 size, I feel like, fits it really well, because you can see I don't have that hook text post, but it sits in that hook slot perfect. And then when you get a bite, you can see how much of a gap you have. That's comparable to a regular EWG hook in a normal size craw. Here, let me flip this around. I'm trying to hold it to where you guys can see. You can see how comparable that hook gap is now. And like I said, when you're throwing big baits like that and you get a bite, you don't want to miss a fish or lose a fish because the hook isn't coming up through the bait all the way. So if you want to throw a Texas rig, this is a great option. Again, that's just that owner 4/0 beast hook. Really, really good. But overall, I think this mold is going to be great to add. Usually when I'm throwing a jig, I start with this. This is a 3/8 ounce little football head jig with the 3-inch Katana Craw. And if I'm getting a ton of bites on this thing, I'm going to switch to this bigger size to try to get a little more quality fish. Not that these don't catch big fish, but your chances of catching a bigger fish with this one just increase going up in that, or like making your overall profile that much bigger. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. The mold's super cool. Obviously it shoots solid colors really well, and then laminates super nice and even. You can even see in that leg how even that laminate goes down. Those individual top pores make your possibilities are endless. You can laminate it normal like this. If you really wanted to, you could turn your blending block, run it with the mold, and you could have the left side one color and the right side another color. You can kind of do whatever you want. But yeah, that is the new 4.2-inch Magnum Katana Craw that was just released at ICAST this year. I do have another mold that came from ICAST, which is going to be in the next video. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think of these. If you like to throw something like this, how do you how do you think that super thick profile is going to affect anything? Is it going to get more bites, less bites? What do you guys think? Let me know. As always, thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you on the next one.